What's up, sports fans, and welcome to the Sports Opinions Podcast. I am your host, as always, Alex Cuesta, and today is going to be another fun podcast because we have a familiar voice, a guy that's been on a million times, and it's a perfect time to have him with the NBA trade deadline right around the corner. This is going to be a very NBA-heavy, trade deadline-heavy podcast. My man, he's the dude behind the Scoop B Radio podcast. He is a senior writer at basketballsociety.com and a contributor at heavy.com, so he's obviously a busy dude. My man, Brandon Scoop B Robinson. What is up, Scoop?
Nothing but the sky, man. Thank you for having me.
Always, man. Where can the people find you and your busy bee self?
Well, you can subscribe first and foremost to the Scoop B Radio podcast, which is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app, or simply visit scoopbradio.com. And then once you do that, that's check number one. Check number two is you got to follow me on Twitter at Scoop B. That's SCOOP, letter B. And then Instagram, you can catch up with the lifestyle, Scoop_B on Instagram. And, you can catch a myriad of different things going on. I got my hands in a few things in 2019. 2019 is going to be a big year, and hope you guys are all, guys and ladies, are all a part of it.
Without a doubt. Yeah, definitely go follow all that. And I always like to ask, I don't know if you're still doing your thing with Wooter Apparel, if you're still got your Scoop B line going. What's up with that?
Yes, me and Wooter are still rolling. You can check out merchandise over there. We have hoodies with catchphrases as well. We have the Scoop B Radio line as well as the Scoop B line of merchandise. And please pick yourself up something, maybe Valentine's Day for that special someone. There's a million of different ways to support the brand. And Scoop B Radio merch and Scoop B brand merch is definitely a thing.
Definitely go check it out. Go grab one. And after anyone listens to this podcast, which I recommend any basketball head to listen to it, you're going to start knowing Scoop as the dude that is your favorite basketball writer source. Bottom line. And I'm talking, no disrespect to Woj, no disrespect to Shams, but you'll be looking at things that Scoop is putting out on Twitter, Scoop is putting out on Basketball Society as rumors, a.k.a. all the Jimmy Butler stuff, all the LeBron stuff, all this Anthony Davis stuff going on that he called months ago and now is getting reported as gospel by Woj, who is a great insider, dudes like that. But you will learn, if you listen to Scoop and pay attention, he is going to be your favorite insider's league source. Do you feel that way sometimes when you're seeing some stuff pop up?
Yeah, but you know what? I've learned this. I'm thankful that, people recognize what I do, but the one thing that I'm not doing is I'm not chasing. I think sometimes when you chase, you forget the process and you don't get to enjoy the process. And the cool thing about it is, yeah, I might not always get credited for things, even though I'm dead on about certain things. But those people you mentioned, they do know who I am. I spoke to Woj via email a couple of weeks ago. And, I first met Woj in 2016. And, I think at the end of the day, when it's your time, it's your time. And my time is now. And I'm just continuing to stay consistent, man. Pretty cool. And I'm just continuing to do what I do. I got now and I got next.
Absolutely. You got it all. And it's going to be fun to watch you as you grow. And like I said, I'm always gracious for you to come on this podcast. I think it's like the fourth time you've come on in just a short podcast. Always grateful. But I do want to talk to you about something. We've been looking, all of us, I think everyone that's been supporting you has been looking for some sort of catch, some sort of thing to get on. And you introduced hashtag Stay Scooped, which is so simple, has everything to do with you, and it should have been around forever. And I love it. What made you... Did you start hashtag Stay Scooped? Is that something that someone brought up and was like, yo, use this? How did that come about?
I want to say that sometime this week I started using it. This guy that I met on Twitter one day tweeted something. His Twitter handle is Splash the Goat 713. That's SPLASHDAGOAT 713. He's actually the person who tweeted that at me this week, and he's based in Chicago, I believe. He was like, yo, you're doing your thing, stay scooped. And I just been tweeting it and people love it. And
yeah, I love that. I definitely love that. We tried Scoop Troop, that never caught on. I think Stay Scooped is gonna definitely catch on. Now I want to jump straight into the basketball stuff because you are a basketball guy, obviously. We're going to talk first and foremost, before we get to rumors, we're going to talk about a trade that happened, which seemed to happen like a roller coaster. It was meeting with ownership and front office, complaining, basically making everyone feel like you want out, and boom, KP, Kristaps Porzingis, was the Knicks unicorn. We're going to talk a little bit about the fan base and the writers because they pissed me off. But he was the unicorn. He was the guy, and all of a sudden, after one meeting, boom, gone, shipped off to Dallas. Him, Trey Burke, Courtney Lee, Hardaway, all to Dallas. Dallas brings back Wesley Matthews, DeAndre Jordan, Dennis Smith Jr., and 2 first-round picks. One of them I think is highly protected. But what do you feel about not only the situation, but the trade overall? Who was the winner? Was there a winner or loser, etc.?
I think they both won, and I think they both won for different reasons. When you look at the Dallas Mavericks, they've added Kristaps Porzingis to the mix of Luka Doncic, etc., and that team is building for the future post-Dirk. And, I think that when you look at the Dallas Mavericks this season, they've been competitive to watch. But I think really and truly the Knicks were looking to clear salary cap or to get salary cap relief for whatever they're trying to do this summer, whether it's Kyrie, whether it's KD, whether it is, a myriad of different people. It's ironic they got DeAndre Jordan. DeAndre Jordan actually will be a free agent this summer as well. So, there's a myriad of different pieces to the puzzle there. The Knicks are looking to they're like tanking while also clearing salary cap at the same time. And I think what's interesting with all of this is the fact that when they made the trade, Kyrie Irving was in town and people took what he said as, I want to come to the Knicks. But you have to listen to context in today's aggregation world. And so I think that more than anything, the Knicks are preparing for the future. They can get 2 max guys this summer, and Dallas is taking the approach of Kristaps Porzingis wanted out, which we knew, and many knew, and you see what happens. And I don't think that meeting, I don't think that trade was done in 30 minutes. I think it was happenstance because I know that the framework of that deal had been discussed as far back as January 16th, which I reported that Dennis Smith Jr. and was talked about in trade rumors, or was talked about in trades between both the Dallas Mavericks and the New York Knicks. And this was, shortly after head coach Rick Carlisle and Dennis Smith kind of had their issues, and it was like the Kristaps Porzingis thing was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense.
And, a lot of it makes it look like it came out of animosity, and there might have been some, but if you really look at it, I agree with you, both teams won. The Knicks got their cap space release that they wanted. They got rid of the terrible Hardaway contract. He's underperformed. Courtney Lee's a glue guy, but he wasn't going to fit on this team. So they did what they needed to do, got their point guard of the future. Like you said, opened up space to get 2 max guys, which I don't know if they're going to get the guys that they particularly want in New York, but they definitely have that space to do it. But also you have to look at where Mills and Perry sent Kristaps to. They probably had a lot of teams that they could have sent him to. He's a great player. They sent him to his idol. They sent him to another great foreign player that he probably knows, Luka, already. They sent him to Dirk, who he models his game around. It seems like it was something where they were trying to do right by their guy, and they sent Kristaps there, and they found a spot where they could do right by Porzingis and also do right by the franchise. Did you get that feeling when this trade was coming out as well?
Yeah, I mean, that goes to my initial statement when you asked me about, who basically won. I think they both won for a myriad of reasons. And I think, Kristaps Porzingis, to me, fits a Dallas Mavericks type of Carlisle type of offense. And he doesn't have to be the focus guy. I think it's Luka's team, it seems. And I think that Porzingis fits today's NBA big man. He's like a more polished, who's the guy from Moscow? Andrei Kirilenko. Oh, yeah,
AK-47, baby.
Just tall and can fill up a stat sheet in a myriad of different ways. Can you put the ball on the floor and dribble? Can rebound, can block shots, can hit the 3 ball, can play you inside, outside, can pass the ball, and it's just entertaining to watch.
Scoop, you just gave the 2K generation a name that they are not going to know who the hell that is, even though he was such a fantastic player throughout the 90s.
Yeah, AK-47, man, was a guy that was ahead of his time.
Oh yeah.
The digital era. Didn't he play for the Nets briefly or played well?
Played for the Nets briefly. He played okay. He was a shell and former Celt, but if I can recall, he was a Timberwolf for. Was that where he made his name? The T-Wolves. It was an obscure team, and he just balled.
It was Utah.
It was Utah. Yes, it was Utah, but it was a team and it was after he came on not too long after the great Utah era with the Stockton Malone going out, and he was there.
Yeah, he played with Darren.
Yeah, he played with Darren. Yup, and they were bomb together. He obviously helped Darren out a lot.
Oh, for sure. He helped Darren make his money, but he just like Luka, played overseas, played for the infamous CSKA Moscow from 98 to 2001, and then his rookie year was 2001. Played with the Rockets for 10 solid years under head coach. I haven't had my afternoon coffee yet or evening coffee, but
yeah, I know, we know.
What'd you say?
No, yeah, just go ahead. He came over, and like a lot of Euro guys, he played a different style than a lot of NBA guys have seen. Super fundamental. They are super fundamental over in Europe.
And the coach I was talking about was Jerry Sloan. I had a brain fart for a second.
Yes. Yep.
But no, Andre Kirilenko was that guy, man. He filled up a stat sheet for sure. And he started at age 15 playing professional basketball in the Russian Basketball Super League. And I feel like, you had guys like Kirilenko, guys like Peja Stojakovic, guys like Dirk Nowitzki, even guys like Drazen Petrovic, who were kind of older professionals when it came to the NBA. I think Luka is a throwback to that.
Definitely. Luka is. And one thing about all those guys you mentioned, it's not like in America where we see the freak athletes that they're just your LeBrons, your Kobes, your Michaels, where they're just unbelievably athletic. They can jump out of stadium. Don't get me wrong. All those guys were athletic, but they were super fundamental. And Luka's not faster than anybody. He's not necessarily uber quick, but he sees 3 steps ahead. If he steps to the right and you make a move, he knows the next 3 moves you're going to make to try and block him. Like they just see the game very differently from a European style and how they predict what's going on.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I think he's 19, but mentally he's a little older. He came in. Like, I think a lot of people were like obsessed with Trae Young going in because they think he's the next Steph Curry. But Trae Young's got to play. Trae Young's playing on an Atlanta Hawks team that likely won't make the playoffs, and everybody's paying attention to this potentially being former net Vince Carter's last year. The other thing with Luka is, he played for Real Madrid for 3 years.
Yeah,
and the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 draft, Slovenia's finest. Bro, I really think. The other thing is this: he's considered a point guard by some. He's playing the 2-3 in the offense, and I really feel like he's an advanced Sean Livingston at 6'7", 218 pounds. Remember how Sean Livingston came in and everybody just thought that he was going to be like what LeBron was, kind of?
Oh, Sean Livingston was next. Before he had his gruesome injury, he was in a way, he's not as tall as what the Greek Freak was, but he came in very similar with just uber athletic, saw the floor, did literally everything, played great defense. He just didn't have a developed jumper, and that was the one thing that everyone said Sean Livingston needed. He was going to be the superstar. He was with that group of CP3, with Darren Williams. Like, he was mentioned amongst those dudes, and without his injury, he probably is in that way. And yeah, Livingston is definitely a good comparison when you're going there.
Yeah, man. And I think that had he not gotten injured, we'd be having a different conversation. A guy that, was looking well in that Clippers offense early on. Luka's kind of playing off the ball more, but, has good ball handling skills and has gotten, the cosign of LeBron James and others. And, I definitely think that Dallas will benefit with a Porzingis on that team. Hopefully in the next 9 to 10 months, JJ Barea will be healthy. I would have liked to have seen Luka as well as Porzingis and JJ Barea all been healthy and playing on that Dallas Mavericks team this season. But, time will tell. And you also have Tim Hardaway Jr., who's had, flashes of brilliance this year, but, it just didn't work out. And I think for the Knicks, you got Enes Kanter, you got Frankie Ntilikina, you got
Well, quick question with the Knicks. Is Kanter going to get dealt, and do they buy out both Wes Matthews and DeAndre Jordan? How is that going to turn
I
out there, do
haven't
you
heard
think?
anything about DeAndre Jordan yet. I spoke to someone yesterday who said that Wes Matthews could be a thing. Um, and I think that in this Cantor, I've heard that the Nets do have interest, but where he fits in that right now, I don't know. I do think he is a Nets type of player. He could keep his
Will the
department.
Knicks do a deal with the Nets with a guy like Cantor who can be such a big factor, and especially a big factor in this rivalry as it's really starting to bud? Because I think the Knicks are going to be a good team soon. So it's going to be a legit rivalry, I think, within the next 2 years.
Yeah, it will be a legit rivalry in the next 2 years. I hope that the Knicks keep him because I think he's just such a personality. I hope he stays in the New York area. So either if he stays with the Nets or the Knicks, he's still local, but he seems to fit well within the Knicks organization. But I don't know. I think you hear so much. So I'll start with DeAndre Jordan. I could see him benefiting a team. A Golden State or Houston off the bat. Houston could use his defensive prowess. If he were able to go to Houston, he'd rejoin Chris Paul in Houston. Those guys were former Clippers, and could help Clint Capella defensively. If he stays with the Knicks, they'd have to re-sign him in the offseason. I'm sure he'd want a lot more money next season. When you look at Wes Matthews, he's a guy that could help certain teams. Philadelphia rings a bell. And I think really and truly, it just depends on what the Knicks are legitimately trying to do. Cantor, I'd like to see him stay with the Knicks. He seems like a Knicks guy. He was asked by Ian Begley of ESPN the other day just about his minutes and whether he'd defer. And, he was kind of diplomatic in his answer. But if DeAndre Jordan stays, he'll definitely have a timeshare at the big man position for sure.
Definitely. Now I want to jump in. You touched on Kyrie. You touched on his comments. A lot's been made of it, especially in the New York media, because New York is so thirsty to get Kyrie here, the Knicks. You said he's just trolling. Is that how you really feel? Do you think Danny Ainge is going to let him go? And if he's really this unhappy, do you think that he would allow him just to walk away in division to the Knicks? What are you getting? What type of inklings or any sort of hearings have you heard about Kyrie in Boston?
I don't think Kyrie is unhappy in Boston. I think Kyrie is going through growing pains right now. And I think that it was perfectly illustrated when he noted that he called LeBron and kind of apologized to him. And I think people took those apologies out of context. I know that there's been times, I can speak for me, where when I was younger, there was something a mentor was trying to teach me that when I got older, I had that aha moment. And I said, oh, this is what you're talking about.
And, they only talk about him talking about the apology. Obviously, he was also calling LeBron, like you said, from a mentor standpoint, going, man, you've dealt with so many young teams. How did you do it? What did you do? And I guarantee LeBron said, I learned you got to be tough. And you hear that a lot about LeBron. He wants everything his way. And I feel like Kyrie's kind of getting to that point where he's like, all right, I got to take over. If I got to be harsh, I got to be harsh.
Yeah, but what's interesting about that is when you look at LeBron's first stint in Cleveland, you knew he was a winner. You knew that he was competitive, but Cleveland couldn't put the right pieces around him.
He was a pleaser at that time. He was a young guy that just wanted to make everyone happy.
It was that, but it was also the Cavs didn't have the cap space to bring certain people there, and or people didn't want to go to Cleveland. LeBron made Cleveland cool in his second stint, like Drake made Toronto cool when he started calling it the Six.
Yep. Oh, God.
And I think that when you look at LeBron, when he left Cleveland the first time to go to Miami, he was embraced by a winning culture, by Pat Riley, by Dwayne Wade, by Udonis Haslem and others who learned the tricks of the trade from Shaq when they won their first championship in 2006. So when LeBron came back to Cleveland, his mindset was different. And he was with Tristan Thompson and Kyrie Irving and some of those other guys who were young. And, so that winning pedigree, that level of excellence and more, it rubbed off on him, but it took time. So now Kyrie has left Cleveland and he's in Boston and he's in a similar situation. He's won a championship. It's kind of like Rondo when he left and went to Sacramento and Chicago and Dallas. Rondo has a ring. He won one in 2008 with Boston. Him being under guys like Kevin Garnett and, Paul Pierce and some of those other folks, it's a situation where Kyrie comparatively is in Boston now with Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward and Al Horford and all those other guys. Horford is the veteran, but Kyrie has the hardware. And I think he's frustrated. And the crazy thing about it is when he went on that rant or was talking to the media about it on the low, he was throwing his teammates under the bus, but it got their attention.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And if you understand, like if you played sports or you've been around sports, you heard him talk and you understood that he was calling his team out, that he was 100%. And, and it got brought to the light that he was calling his team out because a lot of, ESPN especially keeps a lot of former players on there and they kind of deciphered it after they heard it. But when you first heard it, you're like, yo, he just went at them. He just basically said, like, we need to fix this. The young guys need to step up. And he flat out said it. And as the team leader, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with it. I mean, but the greats did it. Phil Jackson used the media to get players' attention. He used to do that with Kobe, Shaq, Dennis Rodman. And, Kyrie was doing the same thing. Kyrie's very calculated. He's not dumb. And I can say that Kyrie will be all right. I think that, the comments about Boston, if he said what he said at the beginning of the season about, if you'll have me, I'll stay, that admission would not hold up in small claims court. He wasn't under oath, and people have the right to change their mind. And I think 2019 is a bit tricky, and it's difficult to nail down who is going where. And I took that risk back in September when I discussed Kevin Durant going to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yes, you did.
And, the thing that makes it likely is the fact that the Warriors seem to be making a transition as well as the Western Conference competition. LeBron going to LA signaled that. And the Lakers are going to be the new wave. If they get Anthony Davis, everything else will come their way.
Yep, they'll be the new old wave because the Lakers are the Lake Show and they always will be. Now, if I have to ask you right now, everything you're hearing, Kyrie going to Boston, is he going to be a Knick or elsewhere? What would you put the money on?
I don't bet, but I will say that Kyrie Irving staying with Boston looks good right now. I think that there's a relationship he has with Boston even before he stepped foot on that Boston Garden court. I mean, my brother was definitely his father played at Boston University. The ties that he has to the Knicks are obviously him being from West Orange, New Jersey, his dad being from the South Bronx, and his godfather being Rod Strickland. Rod Strickland is a former Knick. There's a tie there. Had Rod Strickland actually on the Scoopy Radio podcast this summer, and he talked about first time he really watched Kyrie play was at LeBron James's basketball camp when Kyrie was in high school.
Wow.
Ironically, but when I look at Kyrie Irving and where he'll be, I think the Celtics, until proven otherwise, is still a safe bet for him. Not just safe, but I mean, there's a young team. Sometimes the grass is not always greener the other side. The grass is always greener in Boston because their color is green, but I think that there is a relationship and a free-flowing style of basketball that Kyrie Irving is able to play that he was a little bit stifled in his approach in Cleveland.
Yep, it's definitely his team. Now we're going to switch gears because I saw that you put up that there is a possibility of interest in Derrick Rose moving on in trades. And I have to say, earlier the start of the season, you were probably the first dude or one of the first dudes outside of Minnesota on the Derrick Rose's back train, saying, he's looked good in practice. He's looked good. He looks healthy. He's bouncing again. And then we saw it. The dude had a 50-point game, which we haven't seen him do something like that in forever. And he is just putting up good numbers, playing well again. He's obviously not the MVP that he once was, but he is a baller again. He's focused. He's ready to go. You mentioned that there's a possibility of him getting traded. The only thing that scares me is we've obviously seen if D-Ros is not happy, he hasn't seemed to be able to play through the unhappiness and, just ball out. He's kind of a guy that needs to be in a good situation that he enjoys in order to do him. Where do you see the trade possibilities going with him, and how likely is it that he moves?
Well, for those who are listening up something on heavy.com this morning about the Derrick Rose situation, and just for those who are listening, spoke to just a bunch of people throughout the NBA just about what they think about Derrick Rose as it relates to just his ability to be consistent this season. And one of the people who, or a few people who have just spoken highly of D-Rose is number one, Kevin Garnett, told me that he's still a starting point guard to this day. And those comments kind of went viral. Kemba Walker told me that, D-Rose, he's a big D-Rose fan and he's happy to see him playing. Spoke with Jabari Parker of the Chicago Bulls, and he spoke glowingly about Derrick Rose and Jamal Crawford as well. He said he's still as fast as any guard out there. And he reflected on just practicing with him last season. He said that, last year he would have some practices where he just dominate and get to the lane at will, hit mid-range shots and floaters, all the reasons why people still love him. And here's the thing, man. He came off the bench in the playoffs last season and scored 14 points per game, all while shooting an impressive 50.9% from the field and shooting, I believe, 70% from downtown. So he signed a $2.3 million deal, and he's definitely maximized that deal in his comeback. And to your question about him being moved, I had NBA capologist Eric Pincus on the Scoopy Radio podcast this week, and I asked him, what he thought about him being moved at the trading deadline, and he said it's possible. He said, I don't know if he's an all-star this year, but he's been playing like one, and there's a team that could use that kind of a scoring punch. But I wouldn't be surprised. This is Pincus. He said he would be surprised if the Minnesota Timberwolves stayed rather than conservatives hold on to pieces they should trade and try to make a playoff run and ultimately fail. So those are words from Eric Pincus, and we'll see what happens. But I definitely think that Derrick Rose's next deal is going to be interesting because he's been healthy most of the season, but the Timberwolves, I think he's in a good situation because they're allowing him to play like him, and they're also holding him when he needs to be held. Saturday night, he was held out, and I believe he's sat out the last 3 to 4 games. And they got a new interim head coach, and I think they're just being cautious with Derrick Rose.
It's probably smart giving his injury history, and if you can treat him right, then he can be a very good savvy veteran, either starting when you need him to or coming off the bench, and he has showed that. So we're going to jump into the heavy big dog trade rumors. One you've definitely been all on top of, Anthony Davis, and his basically saying he wants to be traded, even though the Pelicans don't have to do a damn thing right now. They can hold on to him. They have him up until next year, through next summer. He has basically a year and a half left to play out on his contract. They can trade him before next trade deadline, so we could be here again next February. There are reports that the Lakers have been coming out, sending all sorts of offers at them. Pelicans aren't feeling that it's serious, and they've been just shooting them down left and right. What are you hearing about the current situation? That is super fluid, and it can happen. And what do you think ultimately is going to happen? Is Davis coming here this year, next year, or is he going to Boston end of next summer anyway, like a lot of people have been saying, even though his dad has said hell no?
I think that ultimately, in between now and 2020, he'll be an all-star. He'll still be an all-star, but he'll also be a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. It really truly depends on what LA is offering. You look at the Lakers and what they've been able to construct in the offseason, signing people to 1-year deals, which was purposely done so that they could sign max guys this offseason. They added guys like Lance Stevenson, Rajon Rondo, Michael Beasley, even Tyson Chandler. But the reality is the attractive pieces on that team are Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, and Lonzo Ball. And, Lonzo, and the thing about it is while LeBron was injured, he legitimately, in his absence, the Lakers have been able to showcase what they have on the floor. Lonzo's been impressive when he wasn't hurt. Brandon Ingram has been up and down, but you can tell that there's he's better on the court by himself than with LeBron. And Kyle Kuzma, it seems like they're grooming him to be LeBron, Scottie Pippen, but is he expendable? Do you trade the farm to get the star? That's where we are. And I think that when it's all said and done, the Lakers may need to include a third team. And, I reported that in December 2nd, I believe, December 2nd or December 3rd, that there's a possibility. Like, I know that the Lakers have this big board where they have all these different trade scenarios. My source has been pretty, transparent with me and sharing that, they have like Pelinka and Magic Johnson have like a board of a ton of different trade scenarios, and the Orlando Magic was one of those teams that were interested. They had, Nikola Vucevic, who would go to the Pelicans, and then Lonzo Ball could potentially go to the Orlando Magic, and then Brandon Ingram could be sent to the Pelicans as well, and then Elfrid Payton would be part of that trade as well as Anthony Davis. So there's like a board of just different trade scenarios that are there. I know that the Phoenix Suns and the Los Angeles Lakers were discussing trade opportunities. I was discussing that around the December 15th date, when players who were signed in the offseason could then be moved. So the Trevor Ariza trade that ultimately shipped him to the Washington Wizards, the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns were talking. And the Phoenix Suns basically were only interested in doing any type of moves with the Lakers if Lonzo Ball was involved, and the Lakers declined.
That's pretty wild right there, that they wanted Lonzo Ball for, Trevor Ariza being the main piece. Obviously, they would have to give up more to get a young prospect like Lonzo Ball, but that is, that just goes to show the value of a player who he has been injured a little bit. He was slow to get started, and he had a good run while he's healthy this year. He shows he's maturing, but it is interesting to see just a high value that he's calling for around the league.
Yeah, he's played his value. People get mad about his dad and him, constructing.
His dad's a genius.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's a genius, and people get mad. But the funny thing is, him and President Trump were going back and forth in the media, saying different things. The crazy part is, the two of them are so similar.
Neither of them lost. They both won. They both got airtime. They both got play. They both got – no one lost. And they knew that. They both knew that. Yeah, so definitely interesting. Now, I have a question for you. Do you think Magic and Pelinka are willing to include the Nets at all, or ever do a trade with Sean Marks again with how D'Lo has worked out? Now, all-star D'Angelo Russell.
It's funny that you bring that up, because this may have been lost in translation closing the week. But with all of the doubts at times about whether or not the Lakers could close the deal with the Pelicans, I tweeted Friday afternoon that the Brooklyn Nets are intrigued by the idea of adding Anthony Davis to their roster. They may have a roster of players to give them, per my source, the biggest offer the Pels have gotten yet. And then I said the offer from the Brooklyn Nets. Again, it's an offer. It's not anything that has been negotiated back and forth from my source. But what I can say is something that the Brooklyn Nets are prepared to offer, and this is as of Friday. Things could change come Sunday and Monday, but the offer that the Nets were prepared to give the Pelicans is Allen Crabbe, D'Angelo Russell, Rodion Krujcic, Jared Allen, and a 2019 first-round pick swap, and a 2020 top 2 protected first-round pick for the rights to Anthony Davis and Elfrid Payton.
Now, you're looking at that as also a Nets person, because you are I don't think you're becoming less of a fan of any team because of what you do, but the Nets did give you your start.
Yes.
As a Nets person, would you do that?
The only way that I would do it is if Anthony Davis were to guarantee he's resigning, which I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either. And is this basically Sean Marks banking on the fact that when Dinwiddie and LeVert come back full healthy, that you have a bona fide top scorer in LeVert and a bona fide permanent great six man in Dinwiddie? Is that kind of – because you're giving up an awesome Euro player that showed that he can play in the NBA, a budding star in D'Lo. Allen Crabbe is a sharpshooter. He hasn't performed this year, but he's a sharpshooter. And Jared Allen is, a developing big man who is just – he's made a name for himself as blocking everything and everyone. So it's really hard for me to give away with some of those dudes as a Nets fan.
As a person who the Nets gave me my first time, I mean, the same thing could be said about, how I answered the question about the Knicks. I can't openly say, that I have a television gig with MSG Network. So I could be carefully and also honestly honest with you on both.
Yeah.
What I can say to you is this, as it relates to the Nets. The Nets have the chance, if this is something that they'd like to do, to bring Anthony Davis in, and he'd be in New York City. That's number one. Number two, if the Nets were able to pull that off, they'd still have Karis LeVert. They'd still have Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. They'd still have Spencer Dinwiddie. It's not a guarantee that D'Angelo Russell will be with the Nets after this season. I know that before a month or two ago, there were rumors going around that the Orlando Magic were a team of interest. The Orlando Magic could use D'Angelo Russell, particularly because DJ Augustine is their starting point guard. And I know that the Nets, the headache that was trading with Boston was a thing. And I know that the Nets have clawed their way out of a lot of things in the past, particularly since Jason Kidd era Nets 15 years ago faded and left. You know, the arrival to Brooklyn with Darren Williams and Joe Johnson and others, I really do think they could have been a little bit more patient. You know, they gave him Gerald Wallace, their best defender on that team, to bring in Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. So I think that's short-lived. But the only way that I would get that done is if legitimately Davis agrees to resign. And all of my sources indicate that the Lakers is his top choice. And that's why I think while it's a thought, it seems as though the Lakers have enough pieces that they could figure some things out, whether it's a 3-team trade, whether it's a straight up trade with personnel. But I think that with what the Nets have, it is interesting. And the other thing is, if they're able to bring Davis in this season, they have the opportunity to go after Kawhi Leonard this offseason. You know, I've been vocal about the possibility. My top 3 destinations for Kawhi Leonard is one, remaining with Toronto, and that depends on what they do in the playoffs. Number 2 is coming to the Brooklyn Nets. And number 3 is the Clippers.
Yeah, and he's been, you know, very vocal. A lot of people made something where he said he just wants to play in Los Angeles. And now with LeBron at the Lakers, a lot of people are seeing the Clippers. But just a quick aside on the Nets, what this tells me about Sean Marks' thinking and even Kenny Atkinson, because I think he's more involved than people know with Sean Marks. I feel like Sean and him talk a lot. What this tells me is they're expecting D'Angelo Russell to get a max offer sheet during his restricted free agency this summer, and they don't plan on matching it.
I would agree.
And if that's the case, and they're looking at going, you know what, if he can be a piece, we can get rid of Alan Crabb's contract, which then, like you said, allows us to throw Supermax and Anthony Davis when he's ready to go, if we get him. And then would that make Kyrie then consider Brooklyn, something like that? Or, like you said, a Kawhi Leonard, or even an outside-the-box Klay Thompson, who will be in that mix at that time. So that's got to be where their mindset is, if D'Angelo Russell is included, like your source and your offer said. That is what I get from that.
I personally think that, and I have no intel on that, I'm not tied to Klay Thompson. I'm more tied to DeMarcus Cousins. But what I will say is Klay Thompson, from a fan standpoint, and just the way the Warriors are, I could see him staying with the Warriors. I see I see a Kawhi Leonard situation more likely in Brooklyn than I would Klay Thompson. As far as Kyrie Irving goes, he's a guy that is from West Orange, New Jersey, and a guy that was coached by Byron Scott, a former Nets head coach. And Byron Scott, during his time with the Nets, lived in Livingston, New Jersey, which is right next door to West Orange.
Yes, it is.
And I know that Kyrie Irving and Byron Scott, they were close during Kyrie's early years with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I know that Kyrie has talked about growing up, going to the Continental Airlines Arena.
He was a Nets fan, if I recall, when he grew up.
Yes, he was. Going to the Continental Airlines Arena, watching Jason Kidd, watching Kenyon Martin, watching Richard Jefferson, etc. So I know that there is, I think, as much as people talk about the Knicks, the Nets franchise is more familiar to him based upon his relationship growing up in New Jersey and watching Jason Kidd and company. And I know that I remember talking to Kyrie back in 2000 and I want to say 2013, when Jason Kidd took the head coaching job with the Nets. And he was just so pleased to see Jason get that coaching opportunity with the Nets, and really going out and doing what he did. It didn't last with the Nets. But what I do gather about Kyrie Irving is he was impressed with what Jason was able to do. It was nostalgic for him. And I think that Kyrie and the Boston Celtics, like I said, is still the number one choice. But I think the Nets are an intrigue based upon history. I'll just say that.
All right. So if you guys heard it from Scoop, he thinks Anthony Davis going to end up with the Lakers. And then we're going to jump into another guy who made headlines because he said he wants out. Blake Griffin. So I'm not surprised. The Pistons are not going in the direction that I think he thought they would. He's playing at a very high level again. Blake Griffin said he wants out. Do you have any indication of who is interested in Blake, and where do you think he's going to end up?
Well, I reported, I want to say last week, about Blake Griffin privately wanting out. And the teams that are of interest to Blake are the Miami Heat, the Detroit, not the Detroit Pistons because he plays for the Detroit Pistons, would be the Miami Heat, the Dallas Mavericks, and even potentially the New York Knicks. And I think that obviously the Knicks making the move for getting Porzingis out of here kind of changes some things. But I do think that a guy who's an all-star this year, he's put up solid numbers. The team started out 13-8 at the beginning of the season as of last week. Last week they were 21-27 and in 10th place, but the Eastern Conference standings go up and down. I do think that Blake Griffin would fit on other teams, but he says he's happy. That's what he says. We'll see what happens.
All right, I just wanted to touch on Blake there. So going back to the Knicks, I told you I was kind of pissed off at their fans and their sports writers and their, people on the fan. I listen to WFAN a lot, and everyone's a Knicks guy. No one talks about the Nets. I'm just used to that being a Nets fan. But with the Porzingis trade comes all of these fans and all these guys. Well, he wasn't that great anyway. He was hurt and this and that. And I'm like, I listened to it and I'm like nauseous about it. I'm like, you were the same people that were, the Latvian unicorn. He won the skills challenge. He's the rising star. He is the new NBA. And they were all so happy. And then they bash the guy because he gets traded. I'm so sick and tired of just the Knicks nonsense because I feel like the Knicks are constantly like this. And then all like we've talked about, is Kyrie's definitely coming here now. And, Kevin Durant is definitely coming now. They're all so confident. In my eyes, what I see the Knicks getting, and it's not a bad package at all, and I think they'd be an extremely good team and super competitive, I feel like they have a better chance of getting Kemba Walker and Chris Middleton than they do of getting Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Am I wrong with that feeling?
I know that Chris Middleton has been mentioned in everybody's mouth, particularly Lakers fans, who feel as though if the Lakers cannot get Anthony Davis, they could go after Chris Middleton and Bradley Beal.
He's a fantastic player. I love Chris Middleton.
Yeah, I like him too. He's a combo forward, and he's a guy that can really wreak havoc. And I think a team like the Lakers, if they can't get Davis, will be a good place to get him. As it relates to Kemba Walker, he and I spoke over the summer. And I asked him what his goals were for the season, and he said, I just want to make the playoffs. That's it. He's entering the final year of his contract, and, many people are speculative that his next move will be the Knicks. He told the Hartford Courant's Dama Moore, I've been hearing it for years. Every time I come home, when are you going to come home and play for the Knicks? I know it's a special place. I was a Knicks fan growing up, always rooted for the team. Home team rather, but I just can't see myself in a Knicks jersey only because I've only been in one jersey. I asked him to clarify those comments a little bit. When he said those comments about the Knicks and all those different things, they were buzzing. He said he has been on one team in 7 years, going on 8 years. He said, when it's my time, I'll make a decision. That's all I said. I didn't see myself in a Knicks jersey because I've only been in one jersey. And so, he kind of clarified those comments. And then, Kemba talked about just the East being wide open. And one of the things that, really stood out in our conversation, I asked him, I said, why do you think people aren't mentioning the Hornets in the same conversation as some of the other teams like the Sixers or the Celtics? And he told me, why should they? We haven't done anything in the last couple of years. I wouldn't mention us either, but we're not bothered by that. We're not fazed by that. It doesn't really matter at this point. No games have been played, and there's no telling what could happen over the course of an NBA season. This was before the season started. When it relates to Kemba Walker, I think sometimes when you play for your hometown team, like a Knicks team, you can't stay focused. But I think with Kemba, I really do think his heart is in Charlotte. I don't think everybody can play for the Knicks. Derrick Rose was a special player. He could play for the Bulls because he wasn't in Inglewood. He was somewhere downtown and was, secluded. Kemba, I think it would be the same thing. But I think I like Charlotte for Kemba, particularly at the trading deadline if they're able. I talked about Blake Griffin, tweeted about that. Andre Drummond is also a guy of interest to the Charlotte Hornets. Currently a Detroit Piston, a guy that the Hornets are interested in. They're also interested in Drew Holiday. So, I think when you look at Kemba Walker, if they're able to go deep in the playoffs this season, I think Michael Jordan is going to give Kemba hell in making him stay. And giving him something he can't refuse. So I definitely think that the Charlotte Hornets are a team that could still benefit from Kemba. I don't see the Knicks as that team. I see Kemba staying in Charlotte.
So Hornets fans rejoice. Kemba's going to stay, and I love Kemba. I think he's a hell of a player. I think he's a very disrespected player. He's not put in with the top guys, the top players, the top point guards, and he sure as hell is. He's one of the best scorers in the NBA. So I'm happy to hear that Kemba, might stay. The Hornets fans should be happy to hear. Now, quickly back to the Knicks. Anything telling you that the Knicks are done now, or are they looking to make more? Obviously, we talked about the buyout scenarios, DeAndre West. Does it look like they're ready to trade Cantor or any other players to fill more moves, or are they kind of staying put at this point?
I haven't heard anything. Like I said, I've let the internet tell it Cantor is becoming a Brooklyn Net. I haven't got any indication on that as fact. The only thing that has really been rumbling for me was the situation with Dennis Smith. I did get a text message, and I tweeted about it on Friday as well. I'm going through my tweets now. You can follow me on Twitter at ScoopB. I actually tweeted a couple days ago. This was like maybe an hour or two before Porzingis. I said the New York Knicks are interested in Anthony Davis, the Anthony Davis sweepstakes. It's a no-brainer that offer would have to include Kristaps Porzingis. Of course, Porzingis is gone. I said that the Knicks would like to make an offer built around Kevin Knox, Mitchell Robinson, a 2019 and 2021 pick with KP excluded. So the Knicks were looking to explore those opportunities. I don't think that's likely because based off of some of what my other colleagues and peers have reported, they're looking for the best deal to get to unload Anthony Davis. And I don't think Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson is enough, although I do know that the Pelicans do like Mitchell Robinson.
Who doesn't? Mitchell Robinson's a hell of a player. He's a block machine, and he's going to develop into a really nice player. So on to the other side of the city. We talked a little bit about the Nets. Anything that you're hearing besides we talked about AD and their package, is that basically their main focus right now, potentially jumping into that Anthony Davis sweepstakes, or are they looking to make any more moves right now?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hearing. I haven't heard any other really substantial moves with the Nets. I know that the only thing I'm hearing at the close to the trade deadline is the Nets potentially offering that package to the Pelicans. And that would definitely be a shift in the Eastern Conference for sure, because in the offseason, again, if you're able to get Anthony Davis on that team, you'll be able to attract a Jimmy Butler. You'll be able to attract a Kawhi Leonard, etc. So those are the only things I'm hearing at the trading deadline for the Brooklyn Nets. And I still think the Lakers are likely, but it is an intrigue to see what the Brooklyn Nets can do in that process, because those are some young prospects. The Jared Allen part of it is something
that
that's
hurts.
intriguing to me. A guy blocking everybody and your mama's mama and your mama's mama's mama on the defense. I think there are some defensive things that even Jared is doing that Brook Lopez wasn't doing. But Brooke definitely has a place in the Nets folklore. I won't disrespect him. I like the fact that he's playing well in Milwaukee right now and can really hit the 15, 16, 18-footer and then even hit the three-point shot. But as it relates to the Anthony Davis situation, I definitely do think that is at least intriguing, and I think that the Pelicans should pay attention to it. But I do think that the Lakers are going to have their way eventually.
It is intriguing, and I do like hearing about it. But Scoop, you and I both know if the Nets make that trade, if they unload all those guys, what is the media going to be saying? Oh, they did it again. They did it again. They mortgaged their future to get a guy. He's not even going to stay. Brooklyn's not that good. There's, you know what all the talking heads are going to say. Am I wrong about that?
You're not wrong, but look what happened with Paul George.
Yeah, and I think the Nets culture right now, like people don't realize the culture that Kenny Atkinson and Sean Marks has brought to that building. Nobody in the NBA plays harder outside of maybe the Kings, who are the other surprising team in the league. Nobody plays harder than the Brooklyn Nets. They are just the hardest playing team in the league. They went off of grit because they're going through some injuries that would cripple other teams. Their best players out. So it's pretty crazy right now. But yeah, I'd be ready for that storm of having to listen to the nauseating comments. Instead of congratulating them, like if the Knicks did it, the New York media would go nuts congratulating them. The Nets do it, oh, they're stupid. They're not even going to be able to keep them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I think the Nets have definitely, over the last few years, have really looked to expand the culture and making a game experience. And I also add with the Sean Marks part of it, the relationship that he and Kawhi Leonard have during their Spurs days. I think I said it on your podcast a while back.
Yep, you did.
I wouldn't sleep on that notion. And I think that the same things that we talked about on the podcast in the fall still hold true in February 2019. The Nets do have tradable assets that are attractive to some teams. And I think the fact that the Nets have been playing so well, people are paying attention. And I think that the Nets, if they see something that can enhance their brand, do it. I think that the Nets with Anthony Davis would be an intriguing process. I watched him when the Pelicans came to town and played against Brooklyn, and he was intriguing to watch. I mean, he like I talked about Kristaps Porzingis and him being the modern day player in the NBA. I mean, you look at Anthony Davis; he's literally like a stat sheet filler in a different way. The only person I can really compare him to right now will kind of be like Kevin Garnett.
And that is awesome. Awesome comparison. If you're going to give it the big ticket, that is awesome comparison.
Yeah. You look at Kevin Garnett. I mean, the funny thing is, Kevin Garnett is from Malden, South Carolina by way of Chicago, played 1 year or 2 years at Farragut Academy. On the west side of Chicago. My stepfather's, my grandmother, my step-grandmother actually is an alum of Farragut Academy in Chicago, where Kevin Garnett played. And, Anthony Davis is from the south side, but he can play Chicago ball. But, when you look at his ability to play the four by also playing the 3 and the 5, I think that he is the prototype for the modern day big man in the NBA, a guy that can shoot, a guy that can dribble, a guy that can pass the ball, kick out of the double team, even the triple team, and hit you a couple threes as well. He doesn't hurt you. And I definitely think that Anthony Davis is a top 5 NBA player currently.
It'd be very interesting to see what he would do on a Kenny Atkinson team, dishing out the ball to dudes like Shabazz Napier, Joe Harris, Karis LeVert when he's healthy. It'll be nice. And then I think you'd see Rondae Hollis-Jefferson down low a lot more banging. But we're moving on. Last thing, any other rumors besides the ones that we have touched on, anything else that you can bring to the table that you are hearing right now that could be developing within the next few days?
I mean, I talked about it on Philadelphia radio earlier today. Drew Holiday, a former Philadelphia 76er, current New Orleans Pelican. The Philadelphia 76ers are interested in bringing Drew back to the city of brotherly love. And I tweeted this on Friday. Anthony Davis may not be the only New Orleans Pelicans player being discussed in trades. Drew Holiday has been inquired about by both the Philadelphia 76ers and the Charlotte Hornets. That's a thing. I can also tell you that the Miami Heat are interested in Philadelphia guard Markelle Fultz. Back in November, December, Fultz was diagnosed with neuralgic thoracic outlet syndrome, called TOS for short, and has not played organized basketball in some time. I know Pat Riley and the Heat are interested in him. And I think that's all I have for now.
It's been a lot. You know, it's fun to always delve into the knowledge and everything with the insiders and things like that, because you get to hear a side that people don't get to normally see or hear. So it's always fun.
Yeah, and then also I can add a couple days ago, the Pelicans. A lot of things have changed since then, but I tweeted that the Pelicans are adamant not to send Anthony Davis to the Lakers, as reported by Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. I spoke to someone who shared that the New Orleans Pelicans are waiting on the Philadelphia 76ers to make an offer. I don't think that's likely. I still think it's a Lakers team to have before the trading deadline. If not, Boston is still going to be a thing in the summertime.
Wonderful. All right. And last thing, switching gears, NFL with the big game here. Who you got? Patriots, Rams?
I got the Pats.
Unfortunately, as a Jets fan, I feel like I got them too. In my heart, I want the Rams to win. In my heart, I want a good game. And I want the refs to not be involved. But I do think that the Pats are going to win. It's just they're too damn good. You give Belichick 2 weeks to prepare for anybody. He could prepare for a basketball team in basketball, and he'd find a way to win, not knowing anything about it. That dude's just that good. It's wild.
Man, I like Tom Brady, and I like him because he's a winner. I like a winner, and I like his. I think people don't realize what it takes to truly win and to be consistent and to consistently reinvent yourself. Tom Brady has that, but he has a good core, and the New England Patriots are the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL. They find ways to win with new personnel and with a top coach in Belichick in comparison to Greg Popovich. They figure some things out. You really saw it in 2005, and you saw it in 2013, 2014. The Spurs still found ways to get to the finals, and Belichick. You know, and the Patriots lost to the Eagles last year, but the Eagles were just that tough. Sometimes when it's your time, it's your time. And, I think that this year the Patriots are going to come back revamped, and they're going to take care of business Sunday at the Super Bowl.
Hearing that just hurts. And, one last thing. You know the Jets are getting new uniforms, right? And I know you being a fashion dude, I want to hear what your comments are when they come out. I want to see that all over Twitter.
Yeah, because I think Jets jerseys look like Eagles jerseys.
Yeah, well – yeah, they really do. They're very similar, and I think I just want to see a new logo on the side of the helmet. They went with the old school 1968 logo, which is a nice throwback for a while, but we need to get something more modern. Throw a jet on it. We are the Jets. We're not just a circle. Let's do it up.
Yeah, I just went on Google News and searched Jets jerseys, and it says Jets new uniform supposedly leaked RUGLY. And
that would be very Jets. But all right, brother. Scoop, Brandon Scoopy Robinson. He is the creator, founder, host, owner, everything of Scoopy Radio Podcast, senior writer over at basketballsociety.com and contributor for heavy.com. My man, thank you so much for coming on.
My brother, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always. Again, where can the people find you if they want to follow you?
Follow me on Twitter at ScoopB, SCOOP, letter B, Instagram, Scoop_B, Snapchat, Scoop_B, and make sure that you subscribe to the Scoop B Radio Podcast over at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn app, Stitcher app, or simply visit scoopbradio.com.
And again, I'm your host, Alex Cuesta. You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, _Cuesta30. Find Sports Opinions on Twitter at SportsOpinion30. Instagram, SportsOpinions30. And I think I said LinkedIn. I don't know why. Twitter and Instagram for _Cuesta30. Also, subscribe to the podcast on virtually anywhere you can find one. Go literally Google search Sports Opinions Podcast. It'll show up a million different places. But if you have Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, all there, everywhere there. Tell your friends. I got great people like my man Scoop coming on all the time. And even if you're just a common fan, come on to the show. It's a great time. Isn't it a fun time, Scoop?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. So again, Scoop, always fun talking to you. This was super NBA heavy, and I hope everyone got a lot of fun, hearing a lot of rumors, and I cannot wait until February 7th to see how it goes down. Everyone, it was fun. Sports Opinions Podcast. Have a good one all.